right, we're going to kick off. Can everybody just give me kind of a wave if you hear me okay? All right, thanks. Thank you so much. All right, everyone can see my screen, the practice account for the Common App? Okay, thank you all. You know who you are, who gave me a thumbs up. So I'm going to, the way that I'm going to go through this, we're gonna do a few things. All right, the first thing is I'm going to go through the general, Common App first. I get questions all the time from families. If a student has already kind of been through this and they're ready to submit, they're like, well, why do I need to come to it? It might reinforce some things. You might catch something before you submit. If a student is kind of just cracking into the Common App, it's the perfect time for them to be entrenched in this and see every single tab that we're going through. All right, so we're trying to meet students, and if students are somewhere in between, it's going to help them a lot. All right, so that's the reason why we tend to have it the last week in September to the first week in October. So what I intend to do is go through the most important pieces of the Common App. So if you look, the first piece here, the profile and family, I'm not going to spend a lot of time with that. All right, so I'm not going to take up your time. It's pretty simple. It's straightforward. You will fill out those questions to the best of your ability. It's literally just more information about, your address, where you live, phone numbers, emails, general stuff. All right. We will go through the rest of the sections. The second piece that I'm going to do is once you've added a school to your dashboard type situation. All right. So I'll kind of explain, all right, what is that second piece of the puzzle? When we've been in events, I've said to a lot of the students on here, I've said to them, the first thing you focus on is getting your main Common App done. But then after that, when you start to add schools, then you get individual questions and you start to get more technical ones. Mr. Laster, what should be my second choice major for this school? They're asking me for a transcript. So what these colleges do is they say, we know we want your main Common App. We've all agreed to that. We're a Common App member. But now we're to the point where we have all these little extra itty bitty questions and requirements that we have that are important to us. So I'll kind of go through that piece of it. And then also at the end, we'll start to talk about the final part, which is how do you get your college counselor to review it? How do you get to the point where you're submitting it? What happens after? All that stuff, all right? So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into the education section. All right, bear with me here. I'm going to minimize my screen a little bit. All right, so when you go in here, most of the education section is pretty easy. We're not a boarding school. You will graduate. It'll ask you the time that you're going to. The only time that you fill out other secondary high schools is if you are a transfer student. All right, so that's when you would say, okay, no, I did. They'll ask you what previous school you went to. For colleges and universities, we are not a high school that has joint programs, but what they're meaning here is if you go to a high school where you could take 2 courses at Brookdale Community College and their supplementary or enrichment, they might want to see that here. This is the number one place where I get most questions from students, all right? And my answers are all going to be the same for every single student. Our class size is 246, all right? We are in this together. Nobody's dropping out. You're all graduating. We're doing it. All right. So 246 is the number. All right. Class rank, none. We do not rank. All right. It is for good reason. All right. We have a tremendous school with a tremendous culture. You guys are separated by point ones and 0.01s for GPA. We want you all to get a great look and stand on us being a competitive private school. All right, Gba Scale Reporting. We are on mixed scales. So we have students that are on, okay, if you're taking a college prep course, that's a 4.5. That's the highest you can get. If you're doing honors, that's a 5. That's the highest you can get. If you're doing AP, that's 5.25. Our students, I always advise them to put none here, okay? In the end, either you will self-report your grades through this system, or for 99% of situations, we will send your transcript. That is how you'll be reviewed. So this scale doesn't really mean much of anything. There is no right way to answer it. It's probably my least favorite question on the entire Common App. And it's not just for our institution, it's for all other schools where it just doesn't make sense. All right. Cumulative GPA. You guys, for the most part, if you've been at the prep for 3 years, whatever is your cumulative GPA at the end of 3 years is what you'll put down. Common questions from students. But Mr. Laster, we're like, what if I knock it out of the park in first try? We do full years. All right. So that's not a part of it. So it's just your cum after 3 years. If you are a transfer student and you transferred into the prep, what we have you do is, let's say you were here for sophomore and junior year, you transferred after freshman year, you would just put that GPA that you have that's cumulative over 2 years. Eventually, when we send your package of materials, they'll have your transcript from the first place or your first high school, and then your transcript from the prep. Gpa Waiting. If you have taken, which most of our students have, even one honors course over the first 3 years, you will put weighted. The only students that will put unweighted are ones who for 3 years, freshman through junior year, have never taken an honors course. That means that they truly have a purely unweighted schedule. They've never taken anything with weight. They're purely college prep. Okay. So if you've taken even one honors course, in theory, your GPA is weighted. All right. For current or most recent courses, you could put basically, hold on one second. You could put for trimesters, we are trimesters. All right. For the courses, everything that will be on your transcript and that's listed on your transcript, you'll put here. All right. For academic honors, all right, this is where you would put, have you been on honor roll? Yes, I have been on honor roll at the prep, and I have been on honor roll in my sophomore and junior year. Okay. Add another honors. Well, that's awesome. Junior year, I got inducted into National Honor Society. So I got inducted in grade 11. If you are part of any other honor societies, you'll put it here. If you're a National Merit Scholar, you'll put it here. If you're an AP Scholar, you'll put it here. If you're a Seton Scholar, you'll put it here. It is anything academic. Anything academic. Okay? So, yeah. Most common question, and I'm going to get to it with the activities. If you're in National Honor Society, it goes here. If you are doing something through National Honor Society, like tutoring or anything like that, that will go in activities. Okay, so sometimes there are, 2 places where things can hit. Right? Bear with me 1 second. All right. Okay. For community-based organizations, what that means is if there are organizations like NJ Seeds, they're community-based organizations that help students with college. If you were in one of these, you probably would know it. All right. If you are not, if you're just working obviously with our college counselors and you don't have anything that's a community-based free organization that is helping you with college, you will put none there. For future plans, this is not where they're going to decide how to bucket you. They just would like to know, do you have any ideas of your career interest? It's an easy scan for them. All right. Now, down the road, when you put a school on your dashboard and it says, okay, what's your first choice major? Blank, blank School of Management. That is the question that will decide how they bucket you. If a school looks at all students the same and they don't really care what major, the admissibility is the same, they probably won't ask that question. Okay. All right. So the next section for testing. This has become a little bit of a tangled web right now. So I'm going to start with just the basic stuff, and then I'll get into like the nitty-gritty situations that we're dealing with now. The only students that should self-report their test scores are students that are 100% sending them to every single school that they're applying to. So they adore their testing. Their testing, they've been advised by their college counselor to send it everywhere. Against their transcript, it looks great. Based on the scope of schools they look at, they're at least in the average of the middle 50% or higher. That's great. Easy situation. Self-report it. You send your officials to all those schools. It all ties out. Okay. Other situation. You are not a great tester. You are not sending your testing anywhere. Very simple. You will hit no here. You will self-report nothing. Because obviously, if you don't want them to know your test scores and you don't want them to see them, you don't want to self-report and say, oh, by the way, here's my low test score for you to look at. So you will put no for this. If you are split and we tell you, hey, these 3 schools, you should be reporting your test scores because you're in the top 25th percentile for testing. But these other 3, you're not. You will not self-report anything, okay? Because you don't want to be in a situation where you tell 3 schools that you're going to send your test scores and 3 schools that you don't. But then on your self-report, you put your test scores. 3 are going to be okay with it. The other 3 are going to wonder why you did it. They're going to say, well, you basically told us that you were applying without testing and now you're self-reporting it. So a good rule of thumb, if you're going test optional to any school, do not report your scores in this section. AP scores, okay? All right, so questions about what to report, those go to your college counselor. We'll tell you, hey, your ACT is better in terms of equivalency. And then now that we look at the scope of your 8 schools, these 3 you'll send, these 5 you won't, okay? If it's AP scores, we tell you only self-report 4s and 5s, okay? If you're taking APs in senior year, you can list those as exams that you will take. Okay, you'll never have to report scores on those unless you decide to transfer credit. But those you can say, hey, I am taking these in senior year. All right, but honestly, if it's underneath a 4, it's not worth sending over. It's not going to blow their hair back. All right. The section that I spend the most time with students is activities, and then also, which kind of ties out to it, which is additional information, all right? I am going to go through some sample activities, all right? The key with activities, before I get into it, is you want to keep your tones exactly the same. So if your tone in the description is selected by faculty and staff to lead service organization, every one of your activity descriptions should be that same tone, right? All these little things matter when you're reviewing apps. If you have one that says, I'm part of the soccer team and was selected as all county, and the next one said participated in service organization, those are 2 different tones. Doesn't really look great, all right? So you really want to be consistent overall. If you decide you want to say, I am a part of, that's perfectly fine to keep that tone. But if you go more like resume speak, where it's, I was selected by faculty or selected by faculty and staff, stay with that. Another thing that I don't like about the Common App, every single college would tell you they want to know in your activities what you've done. What's the action? What are your accomplishments? What's your highlight reel? What are the things that you've done? In this, unfortunately, they say, describe the activity. Now, if you're in college admissions, you're seeing about 95% of the activities that are exactly the same. You know what FBLA is. You know what lacrosse is. You get it, okay? So for our guys and for everyone here, do not describe, okay? If you have to describe it, if you think it's something that they won't know, just describe it briefly. It's a camp. It's a this, okay? But don't spend the entire character limit explaining what it is. Okay, you're taking away a place where you could tell a story about the impact that you've had. All right. So for example, let's do something that's kind of like the prep. All right. Debate, position, lawyer, organization, mock trial. team placed in ninth, or let's say we wouldn't place ninth, we'd place higher than that. Second, team placed second in county competition. Held position as lead attorney. Won most improved lawyer at nationals. That's just an example. Let's do another example. So sport, we'll keep it as this. Let's do something that's service. All right, so actually, hold on one sec. So let's do community service and let's do position. Knight of Setonia. Organization, Knights of Setonia. Okay, and you would say conducted XXX amount of service hours and attended scheduled masses, focused service efforts on wounded warrior project. Sorry guys, I can't spell today. So that's the idea. If it's a team, you could do individual accolades and then you could do team accolades. If it's service, just focus on what you do. All right. Remember, for the seniors that are on here, and good on you for being here, think about it. Remember, this is your highlight reel. You're positioning yourself. You're assuming that they know nothing. You're telling them, hey, here I am. This is basically what I've done. These are all my accomplishments. Check them out, you know? So with activities, it's hard. It's 150 characters. For you guys on here, it's 10 over a tweet, okay? Or an original tweet, that is. You know, so it's really not, you don't have a lot of space. You got to be very concise. Other things that stick out when you're reviewing applications. If you put a period at the end of every description, at the end of one, put a period at the end of all of them. Okay? With your breakouts of positions, okay? This one, for example, let's say it would be position if it's athletics, okay? Pitcher / second base, Seton Hall Prep, junior varsity, baseball. Okay. So we have all these activities, right? There's 10 spaces, right? Most common question that I get, and that's a good question about hours. I will get to that. Good question. All right. So before we get to that, you have 10 activities here. All right. You're probably thinking like, well, I guess that's it. It's 10 and I'm done. No, remember, you should capture everything. So what I'm going to do after this is I'll show you another section. All right. Good question from the crowd. Participation levels. All right. You obviously put what you're going to do. 9, 10, 11. Timing or participation, that's pretty simple. Guys, it's not exact with hours. Don't sit and stress. Just be ethical. Do the best that you can. So if you said, I did it over the summer and I did it for 5 weeks and I felt like I worked like 8 hours a day. Okay. So I did 8 hours a week. I did it for 5 weeks in the summer. And yeah, it was being, it was a service endeavor. Yeah, sure, I would do that in college. Generally speaking, if there's a chance you would do anything like it in college, just check yes. Just check yes. All right. So it's basically a guesstimate. All right. So the question is, that's a good question too. And I won't go too crazy, but when I was talking about the tone, it's in this description area. Okay, that's the tone. That's where it's like participated in. Everything else, you're just kind of just saying what your position was, the organization name. But you could see if you start to go too far, it stops you. All right. So you have to be really, really concise. You can't really waste any real estate. All right. So you say to yourself, all right, I have my 10 activities, but I'm really kind of mad because not only can I not get all my activities, which if you were sitting with me and any of your college counselors, they would say capture everything, right? What do? If you go into this writing section here, this is where you put your college essay, all right? So it asks you what prompt, then it asks you to put it in the box here. You could either Google Drive it, okay? Just make sure it's the right file, all right? Or you could paste it in here. All right, I'll go back to that, but before, there's this additional information section here, all right? And if you go down to the bottom, let's say that they ask you, do you wish to provide details of circumstances or qualifications not reflected in the application? You click on yes. This is your prime real estate if you have activities that spill over. Make sure they get captured. You could call it additional involvement and bullet it. It's your free write section. Other things. What do you want to highlight? Are there any areas that you're thinking, you have to be kidding me? I spent that much time and you're only going to give me 140 characters to talk about something that's one of the biggest communities I'm a part of and things that I've done at the prep? That's crazy. You could say additional context on peer leadership. Other things. We all have our own situations as students. If you want to explain, if you want to highlight that you have an upward trend in your grades, put it in front of them. If you want to talk about maybe special programs or things you've done over the summer, if you want to talk about maybe some involvement that you've had that lends well towards what you want to study, throw it here. If you've had extenuating circumstances that affected your grades, anything that happened at home or anything that you want to highlight, always remove the elephant from the room. There's nothing better in college admissions than when you get real talk and honesty. So you could say, all right, great. So he's telling me that basically it was terrible in sophomore year because of this and that. That's good. It's good to have that context because his grades are a little lower in sophomore year. Okay. This is where it's your prime real estate. It could be your free write, additional activities, spillover, highlights, all that stuff. The one thing I would say is don't be redundant. Okay. So if you've talked about something at length in your essay, don't go in here and say the same thing twice. All right. So you always want to mix up the dimensions. All right. Now going back up, I know I skipped around, but we saw here was the personal essay. Okay. A couple things. When you paste your essay into here, if you decide to paste it, a good rule of thumb is know your word count and cross-check your word count down here. So if you know in your Word doc or in your Google Doc that you have 627 words, when you paste it in here, you should have 627 words. It's a good way to tie it out to make sure you got everything right. If you go through the drive, like a Google Drive, just make sure you get the right file. All right. When you paste your essay in this box, the formatting is not going to look good to you. It's probably the number one things that students scramble about. They're like, it doesn't look right. It doesn't look the way. Do not worry. When they eventually preview it, they will see it. It will look fine. All right. But when you paste it in here, it tends to not look formatted, just so you know. That's a lot of things that students might flip out about. All right. Okay. Hold on one second. All right. Okay. So a couple things. Some great questions as we go. Insight on order to activities. The ones that go at the top are the ones that you have long duration, biggest impact, leadership. Think about it. From a psychological standpoint, once you start to read things, you start to trail off a little bit. You're reading a lot of the same things over and over again. So you want to put what's most important at the top, and by the end should be the ones that you have the most minimal impact. you know? So that's really the way that you can put it. All right. All right, so guys, what we'll do is any specific questions we could take offline, but if it's anything that's anything that's large scale, we'll kind of say to the crowd. Okay. So we'll keep, I'll get to those in the chat. All right, give me 1 second. So let's go to, so in the writing, we went over this, all right? We went over additional information, all right? You can always have your college counselor edit your additional information, anything that you put down, all right? Anything that you put down, all right? So a couple things. So you have, and for those who put questions in the chat, I will get to them, keep them coming. Don't worry about it. Just want to kind of keep moving with this. So for other thing, this courses and grades section, not every college will ask for it. There's going to be some that will say to you, hey, we need you to self-report your grades in this system. They will not let you go through it. All right. Other schools will not care. You'll see that they'll list it down here. They will list it down here when you start to put some colleges on your dashboard that actually require it. Right. So think about it. I always say conceptually, you have gotten done with your entire Common App. What'll happen is you will have a green check here. You'll have a green check here. Green check, green check, green check. Green checks are your friends. All right. Once you have green checks in every single section here, that's when you know you're just about done. Okay. Once you are finished with your Common App, right, then what happens is you say to yourself, okay, well, where am I actually applying? So let's say you're applying to Bucknell. You'll search Bucknell. You know you're going to apply there. You'll hit the plus sign. Okay. Then what happens is Bucknell is on your My Colleges tab. Bucknell is on your dashboard. So this Common App now is a tracker. Right. So what Bucknell now does is they will say to you, okay, we know we're going to get your Common App, but we have questions too. Okay. You'll click on questions. It'll give you some general information here. Then when you go to questions, they will start to ask you some that are Bucknell specific. Once you have finished all their questions and you have a green check and you filled out your FERPA waiver, which I'll go over, which you have to be able to submit your transcript request form, you're going to be ready to submit. Okay. That's literally all you're going to need. So for example, let's say Bucknell. Bucknell wants to know, when are you going to start? I'm coming in the fall. What's your admission plan? I'm in love with the Bison. I'm early decision. All right. Do you want your test scores submitted or not? This is where they're going to ask you, do you want us to review you with test scores or not? My ACT is a 33. You're going to report them. My ACT is a 24. Don't report it. Okay. We're going to we'll be able to advise you on that. Okay. Do you intend to pursue need-based financial aid? I have to go over this. This question is going to be asked a lot. You are perfectly fine in any case checking merit-based scholarships. That is based on your academics. I would like to tell you in the landscape that there are not schools that are need aware, but they are. There are some schools out there that will look at your financials and they will be need aware then to make a decision. They may say, well, the student is borderline and they have significant need and we're probably not going to meet it. So there are cases where they might waitlist the student and they may take that into account. If a school says that they are need blind, they do not care whether you check this or not. Okay. I don't know off the top of my head every school out of the 3,000 to 4,000 that are need blind or need aware, but that is something to consider. If you as a family know that you're really not going to be going for any types of loans or looking for any need-based aid, just scholarships, you can choose what you'd like with that. Okay. But it's something that I have to bring up for every family because unfortunately it is a piece of the process. I'd like for every school to be need blind, but they are not. Okay. Do you intend to submit a portfolio, religious preference, academics? All right. Down here, writing. right? They ask about disciplinary history, nothing there, all right? Academics you go to, okay? College of Management. Okay, so this is a supplemental essay, and I've talked to students about it. Now what they're saying is we have your essay, but we have some specific questions that we want you to answer. I have said this so many times over the last 2 years, 2 weeks to students. If a supplement is optional, you do it. Remember, this is your presentation. An optional supplement is another place for you to tell them another story about who you are or another thing, all right? There's only so many subjective pieces of this. You want to maximize anything that you can, all right? So this one for Bucknell is they're saying, please explain your interest in your first choice major and your second choice, okay? 250 words maximum. So they're asking you to basically tell them why business, why arts and sciences, all right? It's more of a targeted supplement. Some of them will be less targeted where they'll say, tell us about one of your activities that you're passionate about. Others will say, you've indicated that you want to study mechanical engineering. Why mechanical and why mechanical at our school? Why does our curriculum support that? That's a very specific supplement. So usually what I tell students is you have to connect the dots with supplements. It's important. All right. So basically, once you finish your questions here on the schools, all right, and the Common App, you're pretty much ready to submit. What'll happen is, and I see the chats coming through, I will answer some questions. Once you get to the review and submit, what it does is, don't be scared, but it'll produce a PDF. All right. So at that point, you could bring your PDF to your college counselor to review. Right? You could PDF it, download it, and send it, however you want to do it. All right. I always tell students October is basically a month where we're reviewing a lot of Common Apps, a lot of essays, and a lot of supplements. All right. That's really what it comes down to. All right. So just a couple of questions that are in the chats. All right. What if you don't have enough activities? Got the 10 are just a maximum. Don't try to manufacture activities. Okay. If you have 8, you have 8. If you have 6, you have 6. Trust me, there are students that do a lot more with 4 activities than some students do with 10. It's not about how many. All right. It's about the quality. All right. Okay. All right. So what I want to also go over, hold on one second. Common App dashboard. A couple things that are wiry by school. Supplements can be different. Some schools will ask you to upload a transcript. All right. Some schools will ask you, of course, before early action, if you are going to submit test scores or not. And it's very difficult for our students that have just taken the October test. You might have to make a determination. So talk to your college counselor about that. Obviously, if their average is 1310 and you're an 1130 and you're going for it again and you're waiting on your scores, that's a big jump, okay? So there's a lot more downside to saying you're going to send your scores and then getting them back and then being 1150 as opposed to just going test optional, all right? Really, the Common App is not that taxing. It's not. I'm going to go through one more example. I'll pull another school. All right. And let's see. Let's do Penn State. Stay with Pennsylvania. All right. So we put Penn State on there. All right. We go to my colleges. All right. And we'll go to Penn State. All right. Okay. When you go to the questions, Penn State is a little more open with their writing. All right. But they're a different type of school than Bucknell. They have different campuses. So the start term, you'll put fall. Then they're going to ask you your admission plan, early action, rolling. Right. Okay. You go into academics. Penn State is in a very large school. So they like to know how you're bucketed, how you're applying in advance. So if you go here, they're going to ask you the type of degree, 4-year, and then they're going to ask you your program of study. They need to know, are you going for materials engineering? Because that's how they'll review you. They need to know if you're going for Smeal College of Business, because that's how they'll review you. But they need to know, are you going for communications? Are you going for any other schools, architecture? So what you put here, you put accounting, okay? And then you'll put, for example, your top choice is UPark. Then they'll tell you, well, what's your secondary campus? You will find a lot of the larger schools will say, what's your first choice major and what's your second choice? If we can't give you number one, what's number two? All right. They'll give you those types of questions. Okay. Okay. Honors colleges. You'll see a lot of that in here where they ask you, do you want to apply to the honors college? If the school is a likely for you where you're well above what they're looking for, you probably should apply for the honors college. If it's one where you're in a solid fit, kind of like a probable in the center of your list, you're probably not an honors applicant. Okay, probably not. You're a good fit for the school, but you may not be in that high achieving category. And obviously, if it's possible where you're kind of right on the borderline, it goes without saying. Okay. Right, so I wanted to go through that, in about 30, 35 minutes. What I want to do is go kind of rapid fire with the chat and answer as many questions as possible. All right, so, okay. So the additional information on writing deals with COVID-19. So that's actually, that's false. So if you go to the additional information and you click yes at the bottom, a box opens up and then you'll be able to have 650 words. The COVID-19 supplement is at the top, but you have to check yes at the bottom and then the box pops up. Okay, good question. All right, to go over the FERPA, I will. Okay, two, for you guys who have been entrenched and you guys have done your class has done an outstanding job with the forms and getting them in. Really awesome. I couldn't be happier so far. But if you look, one of the things you need to do is fill out the FERPA waiver. And that's part of connecting your Common App with Naviance and then being able to send in your transcript and council recommendation request form. To do the FERPA waiver, all right? Once you put one school on your dashboard, then what you do is you go into recommenders and FERPA. Okay. Give it 1 second. Ooh. Bear with me. Let me log back in here. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. All right. So when we go into My Colleges and we click on Bucknell, so we go to Recommenders and FERPA. All right, hold on 1 second. All right, if you go up, all right, so you will click Complete Release Authorization. Then you will hit I've read and I understand. I acknowledge. And then what you'll do is you'll waive your right to access materials. Now, don't get scared. Our job is to positively support and position you guys to the best of our ability. All right. So what it means is that based on this act, you're not going to see our council recommendations, teachers, any of that support. You'll click on I waive my right. Questions I always get, well, what if we don't? It's kind of a red flag. Then they'll start to, a lot of colleges will see that and they'll pretty much ask, well, what does the student have to fear? Why would they not check that off? All right. After that, you'll click I understand. You will sign off, save and close, and then you will have a check next to the FERPA waiver. It'll be a green check right there. All right. Once you do the FERPA waiver once, it will go for every single school you put on your dashboard. So you only have to do it once. Okay. All right. So if it's more, if you have additional recommenders, you can do it through Common App if you want, if it's an employer, or to be honest, it might be a lot easier just to get your hands on the recommendation and send it individually to the schools of interest. The most important thing they want to see is your council recommendation, and then, to be honest, your instructors, so it's teachers. But if you have a moderator or something like that, it can be added if you'd like. The method would be, sending it directly to colleges. It's not something that we could do through Naviance. They're just not in our system. They're not instructors. All right. Hold on one second. Okay. Other questions that anybody has about the Common App, about individual sections, questions that you've had, activities, you name it. All right. So I was going to say, and I'm sorry, after you submit your Common App, what happens? It's pretty cool. First of all, first you breathe, which is awesome. Then after that, there's a little area where literally you could keep hitting a confetti box, and you could keep getting confetti, kind of like an iPhone where you say happy birthday to someone, which is pretty cool. But then after that, what you do is there's going to be a little box that pops up that says, what's next? Don't disregard that. All right. What you're going to do is follow those prompts. They're going to tell you, hey, we're going to send you an email and we're going to send you a portal. This is where you'll access any communication from us. This is where you'll check your eventual decision on if you're admitted or not. They might give you an ID number. So when it pops up that says what's next, make sure you follow that closely. All right. I had a student once who had a top choice that literally came into me 2 weeks later and was like, I don't know how to get my decision. I was like, they announced 2 weeks ago. You go into the portal. And he was like, oh, look at that. I'm in. That's great. So guys, please follow the prompts that they give you. You put a lot of work into this, make sure that you follow with that. A student just asked, where are you going to find the recording of this meeting? Yes, I am recording it. I will edit it and then I will send it out probably tomorrow, the next day, and it'll go to every student in the class and any parent as well. So you can go through it. So yeah, any other questions? I'm going to hang around and I'd be glad to answer them. Anything that's large scale that might help any other students or families or anything like that. All right. Okay. Good question. When should this be completed? Depends on the school. If you have a November 1st deadline for early action, it's November 1st. If it's November 15th, it's November 15th. So basically what happens is every school that you put on your dashboard, this is a good thing to show actually, good question. If you look, it'll show you more details. Okay. So you get an idea of November 15th. This is one of the deadlines. If you go to the actual My Colleges tab and go through here, this main area here will also tell you, okay, am I going in a binding pool where it's early decision top choice? Okay. All right. So if you go, let's go to another question. It was go back to the FERPA one more time. All right. So you are on the My Colleges tab. You go to one school, click on recommenders in FERPA. Okay. All right. And then when you are here, you hit complete release authorization. You'll go through the prompts, and the one that you will pick is I waive my right to access, which is the top one. All right. Other questions? In terms of just financial aid, again, there are schools that are need aware. So the merit-based scholarship question is fine to check yes. Any student's going to want scholarship. It's gift aid and it has nothing to do with the family's finances. The question that says, will you qualify or will you be applying for need-based aid? For schools that are need blind, it doesn't really matter if you check that box. Okay. If you'd like to be reviewed, they'll probably expect that you're going to be submitting a FAFSA, maybe a CSS profile if the school actually requires it, but there are schools out there where they are not need blind, they are need aware, which means that they will, or they say that they might at times take into account the family's ability to pay when they're making decisions. All right. It is not a lot of schools out there, but it is some. All right. Does it help to get this in as early as possible? For some schools that have defined deadlines, it really doesn't matter. Let's say they say it's early action deadline November 15th. It really doesn't matter if you get it in, September 29th or November 13th. if a school is rolling admissions, it can matter in terms of how quickly they get back to you. So that could be an incentive, but don't rush quality. All right. Do instructor recommendations need to be completed? All my students can answer this. I love it. All right. You gave us your forms. You did not need to do anything to submit those forms. Okay. There is no order to this. You could submit your Common App first before you give forms out. It does not matter. So does the instructor recommendations need to be completed before you submit? No, not at all. However, we just gave a deadline for October 1st, so the student probably has them in anyway, and if not, we'll get it going. All right. Kind of traversing into a different direction, but if you have sending SAT scores, yes, you do that from the College Board, and yes, you could do that as soon as you'd like. I will say this, don't stress as much about getting scores to schools. They are the most common things that will trickle in after because you're leveraging another party. It's not instantaneous, okay? Okay. So do you only do the FERPA one time? Yep, one time, and it counts for all the schools. Question about project acceleration. That can go in the college course section. If you are going to get a transcript from a college for what you're doing, you can put that in the college courses section. If it's just a course that you're taking as a partnership, but it fulfills a high school requirement, then it's not. But that's not the case that the person's mom's asking about. Doesn't matter how colleges are inputted first, second, not at all. Does not matter. Do teachers get a message when you've submitted your Common App? No, Common App really doesn't have much to do with them. Their deal is all based on the forms that you give them, okay? When you give them your teacher recommendation request in Naviance and you give them your forms, that's how they dictate when they're going to send things, okay? How do they know the deadlines? You list them on your form that you give them, which is the teacher request form, okay? Okay. Will we review the Fafsa? No, that's not for tonight. The difference between ED1 and ED2, the only difference, they're both binding pools where you're declaring it your top choice, but one is a little later than the other. There are some students that will do early decision 1. If they get in there, they won't apply anywhere else. If they get denied, maybe they'll go early decision 2 to their second top choice. Okay, so there's really no difference. Do counselors review the Common App before submitting? Yes, we can if they're given to us. So we always say if we're given them, we will review anything, but students got to raise their hand. They direct the process with us. Well, we direct and give them the roadmap, but we can't handle things we don't see. Okay. We'll take a couple more and then we'll call it a night. If you're applying early action and sending your scores, should you send SAT scores as rush if you didn't send them? I think rush is great because it gives you peace of mind that they're going to get there. And it's not kind of like the cable guy window where it's like, we'll get them there between 2 and 6 weeks, you know? So same question, does council review the Common App? Yes, if you ask. Yep. Do teacher recommendations have to be submitted by the application deadline? They're told what their deadlines are, you know, by students based on the form, and that's the deadlines that they're going to hit. So, yeah. So if the student does right by them, they do right by the student. How does the counselor see and review the Common App? Like I said, you could preview it, send a PDF to them, drop it off, however you need to. How do you pay? They will let you know. Once you're about to submit, they ask you for your payment. All right. What time we got here? All right, let's do, I'll tell you what, let's do just a couple more. If there's we'll do a couple more questions. Any more questions? Yeah, as I said, I will edit this. I will send it out, to everyone. I will send it through the portal with a link. So it certainly can be dispersed to every student. This program is meant to be a resource to catch all. But remember, outside of that, you could leverage your college counselor for anything. So as much as we try to get, this is for us to hopefully get you the best product that eventually you give to us. So it's clean, crisp, and easy. Yeah, so, oh, thank you for the positive feedback. I appreciate it. Okay, good question. Is NHS considered a school honor or national? It's both. That's a great question. So it's both national and school. It's a national honor society across the country, but we nominate you within. So you could check both. Good question. Good question. Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, listen, I really appreciate this. Was an outstanding turnout. I hope you guys found it good. Again, you can use the video as a resource. We're going to keep going. I also want to say just a general comment. A lot of you students are on here, and I meant what I said before. You guys have done so far an excellent job. Our metrics of how many forms have got in and you guys following the process. And, to be honest, outside that, asking for help when you need it, this is new for all of you. We expect to have questions and to go through it. All right. So please don't sit and, if you need to raise your hand, raise your hand. Schedule a meeting with your college counselor. And if you see your peers that are dragging their feet, or maybe they're avoiding, or maybe they're, anxious in any way, tell them, hey, go schedule a meeting and, get it done. We'll always work with you. In the end, we'll do everything we can to support you. All right. So you guys have a great night, and thanks for the participation. And yeah, we will see you at the prep. All right. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Laster.
No, you're welcome, bud.
Thank you, Mr. Laster.
All right. You're welcome, pal.